Tonight we're thinking about this question. All week we're taking big questions about life, but tonight we're looking at this question, convinced I'm valuable, but why? We're thinking about the question of our identity. What is it that gives us value? What is it that makes us significant? Who are we? Those kind of big questions in life. I heard the story once of two drunk guys who came out of a pub late one night, and they were stumbling down the road trying to find out where they were. They were a bit lost, and so they were looking around for someone to help them. And they bumped into a very smart, uniformed naval officer. And so as they bumped into him, they said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where we are?" And he straightened up, pushed out his chest and said, "Do you know who I am?" And then one of the drunk guys said to the other, "Now we're really in trouble. We don't know where we are, and he don't know who he is." But we're thinking about this question tonight. Who are we? What is it that makes us special? What is it that gives us identity? I don't know if you've seen the film The Bourne Identity. It's a great film, isn't it? And in the film, there's that bit in the first film where Jason Bourne doesn't know who he is. And he goes into that Swiss bank and he gets given a whole load, or he finds a whole load of passports, all with his photograph, all with different countries and different names, but all his photograph. And he has to decide, who am I going to be? What is my identity going to be? And in some ways in life, we can ask similar kinds of questions, can't we? Who are we going to be? What is our identity going to be? And we can create identities in all sorts of ways. The clothes you wear, the people you hang out with, the course you chose to study, the music you listen to, the kind of films you watch, the way you talk. It's all about presenting an image, isn't it? The image we present about ourselves can be really important. I remember when iPhones had just come out, and or even before the iPhones, the iPod. Okay, I'm really old. And the police apparently discovered that lots of people were getting mugged for their iPods. And it was very easy to spot someone who was wearing, who had an iPod, because they always had white headphones, right? Everyone else used to have black headphones, long time ago when I was a kid. So the police said, if you've got an iPod, don't wear white headphones, buy some black headphones, and then plug it into your iPods. No one will know you have an iPod, and you won't get mugged. Apparently, it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. Because more important than having an iPod was actually letting everyone else know you had an iPod. That was the whole point, right? It's a status symbol. It's about the image you give. So I was really clever. I figured that I would just buy a normal MP3 player with the white headphones. Same problem. And it's all about an image, isn't it? We present the image of ourselves. I remember when I first passed my driving test, I was so excited. Because I thought, now I am going to look super cool. Because I can drive to school. And I can drive to school and I can pick up people, particularly attractive girls who I like, and I'll be able to give them a lift to school and they'll think I'm cool because I can drive. So there's this one particular girl called Sarah who hadn't passed her test yet. And I thought, wow, Sarah is going to love me now I've passed my test. So I remember phoning up Sarah and saying, "Sarah, I passed my driving test. Do you want a lift to school tomorrow?" She was like, "Yeah, okay." Oh, amazing. Only one problem though. The car that I was driving was my parents' car, and my parents, who didn't have a great deal of money, had a brown X-Reg Volvo Estate. So as I turned up outside Sarah's house, I remember the look on her face when she came out the front door, which was like, huh? Worse was to come. We got to about 2 streets from my school, and Sarah said, "Can you just pull over here? I think I'll walk the rest of the way." She was so embarrassed, she didn't want to be seen dead getting out this brown Volvo, so it had completely the opposite effect. But we can be obsessed, can't we, about making sure that we present the right image, the right identity, trying to show that we're cool or trying to show that we're important. But have you ever thought, what is it that really makes me valuable? What is it that really makes me significant? We talk about human rights, but why do humans have rights? Have you ever complained and said, "I'm being treated like an animal"? But what makes us different to an animal? What is it that really makes us valuable? See, someone once did a little survey and they tried to work out how valuable you are, okay? And so they broke down the average, I stress average, human body into its chemical components and worked out how much you'd be worth if you were sold to a chemist. And they worked out that in the average human body, you find, on average, this. Enough iron to make a 6-inch nail, enough sulfur to cure a dog of fleas, very useful, enough carbon to make 900 pencils, enough potassium to fire a toy cannon, enough fat Well, this is rather, relative, isn't it, depending on who you are. But enough fat to make 7 bars of soap, enough phosphorus to tip the end of 2,200 matches, and enough water to fill a 10-gallon tank. And that is what you are. And if you were sold to a chemist, apparently you would be worth about £6.60, which is slightly disappointing, isn't it? Even for a Monday night. You're like, man, I thought I was worth more than that. Now, we can all have a bit of a giggle because we're thinking, of course I'm worth more than that. I'm not just worth £6.60. But actually, here's the question. Why? What is it that makes you valuable? Actually, there are some people with a naturalistic worldview who say, well, pretty much that's really all you are. Listen to Bertrand Russell, the atheist philosopher. He said, we're the product of causes that had no knowledge of the end they were achieving, and the hopes, fears, loves, and beliefs of our minds are just the outcome of an accidental collocation of atoms. You are just a group of atoms. Or listen to the scientist Francis Crick. He said, you, your joys, sorrows, memories, ambitions, sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than the behaviour of a massive assembly of nerve cells. Who you are is nothing but a load of neurons. Or listen to the existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre. Man is a crumpled piece of paper in the rain whose only liberation is death. Now you might say, well, that's pretty depressing, isn't it? I didn't come to hear that. But actually, the reality is these people were trying to be consistent with their worldview. They were saying, look, that's all I am. Materially, if there is no God, how should I or why should I say that I have more value than that? But interestingly, most of us, I would suggest, struggle to think that that's all we are. Most of us, I suggest, consistently in our lives would say, we are more than that. I don't know whether you remember this song. It was on the radio quite a lot a few years ago by Sam Sparrow called Black and Gold. It's a really interesting song because at first you kind of think he's just singing this song about another person. But actually, it turns out that he's talking about God, whether or not God exists. He's looking up into the night sky, black and gold, the black of the sky and the gold of the stars. And he says, if you're not really here, the stars don't even matter. I'm filled to the top with fear that it's all just a bunch of matter. I feel a way of something beyond them. I don't see what I can feel. If vision is the only validation, most of my life isn't real. He says, I'm filled with fear that this is just a bunch of matter. But then he says, if vision is the only validation, if it's what I can see and touch, if it's only that that's real, then most of my life, most of the really important things, at least in my life, are not real. Damien Hirst, the artist, put it this way. He said, why do I feel so important when I'm not? Nothing is important and everything is important. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm glad I am. I'd rather be here than not. I'm going to die and I want to live forever. I can't escape that fact and I can't let go of the desire. It's an interesting question, isn't it? This internal wrestling that we have between our different ideas about life. Or Bertrand Russell, who said that we're just a chance collocation of atoms, later on in his life said, the centre of me is always and eternally a terrible pain, a curious wild pain, a searching for something beyond what the world contains. He struggled to live consistently with his naturalistic worldview, as did Jean-Paul Sartre, who said towards the end of his life, I do not see myself so much as dust that has appeared in the world, but as a being that was expected, called forth. In short, a being that could, it seems, come only from the hand of a creator. And this recognition of a created hand drives me back to God. So he's saying, I struggle to live that way. I feel I'm worth something more. I feel there's something more to life. But why? We've said consistently naturalism doesn't give us an answer, but how does a Christian worldview differ? Well, just listen to these few sentences from the opening chapters of the Bible. Now, often Christians and others might debate about the exact mechanics of the early chapters of the Bible and the issue of creation, but listen to the worldview and the difference it would make if this were true. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky, over their livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. So right at the start of the Bible is this core idea that humanity has significance because we're created in God's image. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that God physically looks like you lot or me? Probably not, because I think God might be better looking than some of us. No, seriously, what does it mean? Not that physically God looks like us, but something of what God is like in his being is reflected in us, particularly his creation. So God is a rational being and creates us to be rational thinking, conscious beings. God is a moral being and he creates us as moral beings, able to distinguish between right and wrong. God is a creative, artistic being, and he creates us with the ability to be creative and artistic too. God is at his very centre and heart, a loving, relational being. And he creates us to live in loving relationships and to find ultimate satisfaction in relationships with him and others. And God creates us in his image. And this idea, this concept, is absolutely pivotal for understanding human significance. It was this idea that drove Charles Malick, one of the great thinkers behind the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was this idea that informed people like William Wilberforce, who stood against slavery, or Martin Luther King, who wanted to stand against racism. This idea that humanity has significance, not because of our capacities, our mental capacities, or our physical capacities. We have significance not just because of our usefulness to society, but actually simply in who we are as human beings created in God's image. That even if you lack certain capacities, even if you're disadvantaged in certain ways, whether you're young or old or not particularly useful in a practical sense to the advancement of society, you still have value because of who you are. So the biblical worldview says you are infinitely valuable in God's eyes. But I guess the question we might have is, yes, we might be able to see that, but it doesn't always look that way, does it? I mean, look in the world, look around, maybe look in your own life, and humanity doesn't always seem precious, beautiful and valuable, does it? Often humanity can seem, well, the opposites. Listen to the theologian, well, not. Listen to the singer Frank Zappa, who put it in one of his songs this way. He said, hey, let's get serious. God knows what he's doing, and he wrote this book here. And the book said he made us all to be just like him. So if we're dumb, then maybe God is dumb, and maybe a little ugly on the side. Now, he's obviously got his tongue firmly in cheek as he sings that, but he's asking the question, look, if we're created in God's image and we're messed up and we don't get it right, then is that a reflection on God? Did God just create us as messed up people? Is he to blame ultimately for the faults in humanity and the faults in me? And the Bible says, no, that's not the answer. God created humanity perfectly in his image, but something's gone wrong. I'll give you an illustration. If you ever fly into Heathrow Airport and the wind is blowing from the east, I'm a bit geeky, I travel a lot and I know these things, the flight path will take you into London over this castle, Windsor Castle, okay? Beautiful castle, amazing view if you sit on the left-hand side of the plane, okay? I actually checked, this is so geeky, I love flying, okay? And I know the direction that the planes come into land, and I choose the side of the plane depending on which, anyway. That's really sad. Anyway, so if the wind's blowing from the east, you're coming to Windsor Castle and you'll see this, amazing castle. But if you had gone to Windsor Castle about 20 odd years ago and walked around it, this is what you would have seen in a lot of the buildings. Complete devastation. Now imagine you had turned up, you hadn't heard what had happened, you hadn't read the news, you just turned up as a tourist, imagine, from out of the country, and you turned up at Windsor Castle and you saw that, and you thought, man, all these people getting so excited about Windsor Castle, this beautiful castle, and it's a mess. It's a complete wreck. I could design a house better than that. Well, of course, that'd be stupid, wouldn't it? That'd be a wrong conclusion. Windsor Castle was a beautiful castle, but it was terribly damaged in the fire. It was, for a while at least, a glorious ruin. Still with remnants of beauty, the former significance and wonder that it had, but also damaged and nearly destroyed. And the Bible says that's a bit like what's happened to us. One theologian put it this way: we are as humanity a glorious ruin. We're created in God's image, so we're precious and special and perfect, and yet each one of us have turned away from him. And so in so many ways find that actually, as well as exhibiting beauty and love and goodness, humanity and ourselves included can exhibit a lot of the opposite traits too. And so the question that we might have is this: if we're created in God's image, but we've turned away from him. And if we actually look in our lives and see much that's wrong and not right, how does God feel about us now? If he sees our lives can be a bit like that. Are we still precious? Are we still valuable to God? Let me try and give you an illustration. I've got in my pocket, I hope, there it is, £20, okay? And I got this out of the cash machine in the Union earlier, okay? And it is my intention to give this £20 away to someone tonight, okay? And you're now thinking, okay, do I trust him? Has he just printed it off on some colour laser printer? So I'm going to get the guys down this table. Can you just check, tell me that you think this is a proper £20 note? Just have a look. Okay, hold it up to the light if you want. There's some good verification going on here. Yeah, passing around the table. You happy with it? Good. Okay, they all want to check. They really don't trust me. He's having a feel. Okay? Scratch and sniff, yep. There we go. £20, you're happy that you think it's genuine, okay? Out the cash machine earlier. I'm going to give this away to someone tonight. It's not a trick, okay? So I'm not going to say, like, you know, after I've given it to someone, now I'm going to get you at the front and make you an embarrassment and you shouldn't be content in your life and you shouldn't need money. Anything like that. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give it away. If anyone's going to look stupid, it's going to be me. So, £20. Who would like it? Hands up, okay? Hands up if you would like it. No tricks, no small print, okay? Hands up. I will. Okay, fine, great. There's a few people who are like, ooh, not sure. Good, okay, hands down. So I will give it to someone in a minute. Obviously someone who puts their hand up, says they want it. But I got this out of the cash machine. It's pretty clean, it's pretty nice, it's pretty new. And there's a few things, you know, I've always thought with a £20 note that you could do, isn't there? Like, one of the things you could do with a £20 note is you could just screw it up as hard as possible. Because at the end of the day, it's just a bit of paper, isn't it? And sharp intakes of breath from the front table here. It's just a piece of paper. I mean, that's all it is. And so my question is, I mean, who would want it now? It's okay. It's screwed up. Now, there's another thing I've always thought you could do. I'm not sure this is actually legally allowed, because I'm not sure whether you're allowed to stand on the Queen. But imagine if I was just to kind of, you know, tread on it with my dirty shoes. You're not sure how much dog poo I've walked through today. And I was just to give it a good rub into the dirt there. And then ask you, now it's screwed up and dirty, who wants it now? Wow. Now, of course, it is only paper, isn't it? And there are some countries where they have plastic notes, you know, and they want to make our money plastic, which is just wrong, isn't it? Like, money is not plastic, money is paper. But because it's plastic... the pain at the front here. So what's your name? Rachel was like, wow, that's my food allowance for the next month. You could just give it a rip, couldn't you? Gosh, now it's dirty, it's ripped, it's screwed up. Who wants it now?
Probably still.
Okay, hands down, hands up.
It's still a set that I reckon.
I have been on the road quite a bit in the last few weeks, and hanging out with students a lot, I have starting to develop a bit of a cold, which means that occasionally I've been oh gosh, and I hadn't got any tissues with me tonight, but I thought, as I've got some paper, that's fine, you know. Oh gosh, that's good. Good, I haven't got a nosebleed tonight. Could be awkward. Who wants it now? A few people are starting to question. Now, also, because I've been on the road a bit, you know, student hospitality, sometimes the food leaves a little bit to be desired, okay? No one's actually offered me food tonight. So I was thinking, can I afford to keep on eating out? Not sure I can. But I've got this paper in my wallet. It's 20 quid, yeah. That would be a wise thing to use 20 quid for. But I thought maybe I could actually get some nutritional value from the paper. So I thought, wouldn't it be good if I could just... how many calories do you think is in a 20 quid note? Do you reckon there's a couple of calories in that? No, actually, I will stop there. But the question is, who would like it? Okay? Hands up if you'd like it. Okay, I'm going to give it to Mr. Abercrombie down there. Round of applause. You may want to wash your hands after you've touched that. Well done. Congratulations. You got 20 quid. Now, there you go. That £20 note was torn. It was dirty. It was screwed up. It was, well, we won't go there. But it was still valuable, wasn't it? Still valuable and still wanted. You know the incredible thing that I discover about the God represented and discovered in the Bible is this. That even though our lives could be a little bit like that £20 note, sometimes screwed up, sometimes dirty, messed up, warts all over, we're still valuable to God. And God still wants us. I know that because actually Jesus shows us what God is truly like. And there was one encounter that Jesus had at a dinner party with a bunch of religious bigwigs when a woman gatecrashes the party. And she comes in and immediately everyone kind of feels awkward. You know, there's moments when, people come into a place, they're not welcome. And all these religious people, they start to move back because they know who this woman is. They know that she's had a past. They know what her life is really like. They know she's a sinner, as they would call her. And they all take a step back, apart from Jesus, who, unlike the religious people, doesn't reject her. You know, sometimes religion can just rub in our feelings of guilt, can't it? Make us feel worse than we already were. But Jesus doesn't do what the religious leaders did. He accepts her. He doesn't condemn her, as they would have wanted to. Nor does he condone her and simply say that her lifestyle choices have all been fine, because many of them haven't. But he offers her forgiveness. He offers her acceptance. And he treats her with value. And that shows me that Jesus actually wants to do that with each one of us. That even though there might be much in our lives that's wrong, that makes maybe each one of us at times feel worthless and valueless, we're still valuable to God. He still wants us. And not only does he want to forgive us, but he wants to transform us. If you were to go to Windsor Castle today, this is what you'd see in that exactly same place from where that earlier photograph was taken. An incredible room, fully restored. In fact, some people say it's even more beautiful than it was before. And the work that Jesus wants to do in each one of our lives is not simply to get rid of the rubbish and forgive us, but to transform us and to make us into the people he wants us to be. Because we are truly valuable and infinitely valuable to him. How valuable? Well, how do you work out how valuable you are to someone? It's what they would do for you, wouldn't it? Isn't it? You know, you get to Christmas, and sometimes you ever had this kind of experience, someone kind of blows you away. They give you a gift, they spend something on you that you just didn't expect. And you're just like, wow, you did that for me? You paid that for me? What did God do for us? What did Jesus do for us? The incredible claim in the Bible is this: he paid the ultimate cost. He gave himself. He gave his life on a cross so that we could be restored, so that we could be forgiven, and so that we could find our value and significance in him. I'm going to invite Sarah, where's Sarah, to come up, and she's going to share in 2 minutes the difference that this knowledge makes in her life. Because this isn't just philosophy, this is real life. Thanks, Sarah.
Hello everyone. So Michael just asked me to share, I guess, how this topic not only has affected me in the past, but affects me day to day. So I've been Christian for quite a long time now, but the topic of me being valuable is something that still really I remind myself of a lot, I guess. I study physics. I'm quite sciencey and academic. I'm also very competitive. If you know me, you'll know that's true. I guess put together, they make me quite a naturally obsessive with how well I do at things kind of person. I so often judge myself on how well I've done in my last test, or how much I know about something, or how I compare to other people. And living like that is quite hard. It really makes me doubt how valuable and how worth it I am when I fail, for example. It's so much pressure to put on myself, to rely on myself, I guess, to be the the person I have to be, because otherwise I won't even accept myself, let alone let anyone else accept me. And I guess the freedom that being a Christian gives me means that I don't have to rely on myself. I don't have to succeed at everything I do to make me worthy of love from anyone, but most importantly from God. God accepts me just because he does, not because I do so well in a test, or because I know more than this person, or any other reason like that. He takes my focus off myself and turns it to him, and that is such a freeing thing, to not have to put all this pressure on myself. Yeah, like I said, it's something I struggle with continually, I guess, and it's something that I can find real joy in coming back to every time when I think about, am I worthy of anything? And I guess I'm not, but that doesn't matter to God. God loves me not because of who I am or what I've done, but because of who he is. He is love, and that's the reason that he looks at me and accepts me, not because of anything I've done, but because of what Jesus did for me. And that, I guess, gives me such a dramatically different life view, that everything I do now doesn't have to be to succeed, to make myself acceptable to anyone else, but I can do it as a result of the fact that I am already accepted.
Fantastic, thank you, Sarah. Awesome. So this isn't just a nice idea. This can make a real difference to the way we live life and view ourselves and view others too. Thanks so much. We've got some questions that have been coming in on the text, so I'll ask Pete to come up, and I think Gareth is our question scribbler from the text messaging machine, otherwise known as mobile phone over there. So I'll ask him to come up. If you haven't typed it in or texted in yet, then do that. We'll have 5-10 minutes max just to go through some of these before we have a little break and the rest of the quiz. But we appreciate your questions as well as giving you ours.
So yeah, the first question. It's all right, I can get there. Isn't it possible to believe people are valuable even if they don't believe in God?
Yeah, so what I'm not saying, not saying is only Christians believe that humans have dignity and value. And that's clearly not the case, is it? And it'd be very arrogant of me to say that. You know, if you're not here as a Christian tonight, you just think that humans are worthless or valueless. What I'm asking is that a consistent outworking from our worldview, or actually have we borrowed that idea from something else? What I was trying to show in the talk was, consistently with a naturalistic worldview, you're going to really struggle to find the basis, the universal basis for human dignity and value in that way that you will out of a Christian worldview. Now, actually, I believe that all of us are created in God's image, okay? Even if we don't believe in God. So actually, all of us are able to recognise that value and dignity in others, even if functionally we might say that God's not there, okay? So I'm not saying that, and wonderfully, lots of us do think that humans have value and dignity. But my question would be, on what basis do we build that if it doesn't come out of that Judeo-Christian worldview, from which things like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was built? And it was a Christian theologian that had a real influence in that. And it certainly doesn't always come naturally out of every other worldview or philosophy, consistently speaking. Which is why, as I said, even those that did try to present that as their worldview really struggled to live that way consistently, because they recognised that it didn't really fit with their experience of life, that we do have value and significance. Okay?
This is a question. I'll just shout out, you can hear. There was a question earlier today in the lunch bar, which obviously didn't get asked just now, but I think would be a good one. Oh, thank you. But would be a good one to ask. Why should we think that the universe is anthropocentric and therefore should hold any meaning for us?
Good question. So why should we think that the universe is centred around us or not? I guess it, again, depends on your start point, doesn't it? If this is a naturalistic world, if naturalism is the only answer, if there is no God, then you could say we are utterly, utterly insignificant, aren't we? When you think of the vastness of the universe, we were just saying that at lunchtime, you know, it takes light, 100,000 years to cross our galaxy. And our galaxy of one of 100 billion galaxies, and here we are, little specks on this little part of a solar system in a little part of a small galaxy in the universe. Who are we? And yet, incredibly, in the Christian worldview, it says actually we are valuable and significant, even though, in terms of our size, proportionately to the universe, we're utterly insignificant. We do have value and significance. We're not just an accident. And I guess my question would be is, as we live life, I think something in our conscience resonates with that and says, yeah, actually we are significant. Life is valuable. Life is significant. I'm not just an insignificant little speck making an insignificant, indentation on a tiny little part of the universe. My life's more than that. And I'd say, actually, I think you're right, absolutely right. Because actually, although that might be physically what we are in terms of proportionally to the universe, that's not actually what we ultimately are in terms of our significance. There's a song in the Old Testament where it says, what is mankind there, not just men, okay? What is mankind that you are, what is mankind? He says, what are we? We're so insignificant, and yet God chooses to know us, to love us, and wants to include us in a relationship with him, which gives us ultimate significance. The creator of the whole show is wanting to be known by us and wants to know us personally.
Can your life be valuable in your own terms rather than, on someone else's terms?
Can your life be valuable in your own terms? I guess saying, can I just create my own value and significance in life? I guess what I want to say is, I can kind of tell myself, can't I? I'm valuable, I'm valuable. But actually, it's even more significant to know that I am valuable because of how that fits into the bigger picture of things. Not simply to try and tell myself that and convince myself of it, but actually to know that. And the wonderful thing as a Christian, I'd say, is it's not simply me kind of having to tell myself, I am really precious, I really am. It's saying, actually, I know objectively that I am. There is a God who has stepped into human history and loved me enough to die for me, and now wants to know me and wants me to be able to have a relationship with him, which gives me incredible value. Not a value that I've had to try and create for myself, but a value that's given to me by him. Yeah.
So I think it's the final question we have for tonight. You say God is a rational being. How is sending his son to die on a cross a rational solution to the problem of sin? If God can do everything, why didn't he pick a more rational option that didn't involve torture and murder?
Yeah, good question. And you may look at it and think, it just seems really barbaric or archaic, doesn't it? That God would solve the problem of the world through getting his son killed on a cross. I think Richard Dawkins said in The God Delusion, he said, if God wants to forgive the world, why doesn't he just forgive it without having himself executed and tortured in payment? What's the point of that? Just forgive. If God's so big, so strong. And yet, does anyone just forgive? Okay. I don't know whether you've ever had to forgive someone something pretty big, or something's happened to you that's pretty hard. Do you just forgive? I had a mate called Martin who I grew up together with, and he was in a pub one night, and he came out the pub, and a drunk driver came down the road, hit his mate, and then carried on driving, dragging his friend under the car until he died. Now imagine I said to Martin, just forgive the guy. Just forgive him. You'd be like, how would you ever, you never say that, would you? Now, is it impossible to forgive someone who's done something like that? No. I've got another friend whose son was killed by terrorists. He was a policeman in Manchester. His son was killed by terrorists. And he's met those people and he's actually said, I forgive you. So forgiveness is possible, but you never just forgive. Because forgiveness is really painful, isn't it? When you forgive someone, you actually say, I'm choosing to take upon myself the pain that I want to give back to you. So forgiveness is painful. And I would say what we see in the cross of Jesus is a cosmic version of that. God not giving back to us what we deserve for the way we've rejected him and ignored him and gone our own way, but God taking upon himself the pain of our forgiveness. And that's important. It wasn't that God was sending someone else to sort out the problem, picking on some random stranger called Jesus. It was God in Christ, the Bible says, reconciling the world to himself. God choosing himself at great pain and expense to make that possible. Now you might say, well, why couldn't he have done it another way? Or what about this way? But the reality is, did he do it that way? That's one of the questions we'll be thinking about tomorrow. How do we know whether Jesus really did live, die, and rise again? There are good reasons to say that he did. If you're not convinced, come along tomorrow lunchtime at 1 o'clock, or get one of the books from the bookstall. And if he did, if that actually happens, well, what am I going to do in response to that? Rather than saying, I would have done it another way if I was God, well, if God has acted in this way, why, and how am I going to respond to that? Okay? Great question, brilliant question, and fantastic question. I'm sure there might be some more. We hope that these kind of events raise questions, not just the kind of general knowledge questions that we've been looking at and we'll be looking at in a minute, but the kind of big questions on life. So do come back through the week to the lunch bars and the other evening events where we're going to explore these in more detail. Do have a look at the bookstall at the back, where if you're our guest tonight, if you're not part of the CU, you can have any of them for £1. And there's a whole load there that will be really helpful. My colleague Gareth, who's down here, give us a wave, will be at the bookstall at the back, and he can recommend one if you're not sure which one to go for. So have a look at that. Do chat to the people around you, and do take time to fill out the feedback form, which is on your tables in a moment. You can leave us your comments about tonight, the quiz, the food, the drinks. You can ask why it was a pub quiz and there wasn't a bar. We reckon we should call it a public quiz. That's why we just abbreviated it. But you can ask whatever you like, put whatever comments you like, say what you like about the talk. And then there might be some people here, I guess there might be kind of three types of people here. There might be some of you and you're saying, look, mate, I think this is just completely rubbish. You're talking out your backside. And because you're British, you might not actually be saying that, okay? But you might be thinking that. So my encouragement to you would be, if you think that, we'd love you to take away one of these. It's an account of the life of Jesus, written by a medical doctor, a historian called Luke. It's one of the earliest documents that we have on the life of Christ. And as we'll look at tomorrow lunchtime, there are some actually surprisingly strong reasons why we could take it as a historical account, not just a religious book. So why not have a read of it yourself and take it away? Don't just take what I say or take what other people say. Actually look into it. You might be saying, well, I don't think this is rubbish, but this is kind of interesting. I've got lots of questions. Maybe you want to find out more. These things are so important it'd be worth finding out more, wouldn't it? Then why not, on that feedback form, when you fill it out in a moment, just tick the box that says, tell me more. And we'd love to tell you more. And we'll tell you about a course that's going to start that kind of goes with this course, with this book called Uncover, where you can investigate this in more detail and answer questions. And if you're saying, actually, this really does sound like a good deal, and if it was true, I would love to know how to get started with all of this, then tick that next box that says, count me in. I want to get started. I want to know how to do that. And if you want to do that as well, then I've got some little booklets as well called Yes, and they're for people who are considering saying yes to that offer of the forgiveness and the transformation that Jesus brings. And I'd love to give you one, and I'll be hanging around trying to nick your answers to the quiz and the next part, and I'd love to give one to you. So come and find me, take one of those booklets, and if you want to come and chat about anything, as well as chat around your tables, then do. I'll hand back to Pete before we have a short break, and then the rest of the quiz.
Yeah, thanks so much to Mike for speaking. Thanks so much for your questions as well. Please do keep texting in questions if you have them. And yeah, I'm sure we can have some time to talk to Mike at the end. So yeah, we got a little 5-minute break now. Grab a drink, converse, and we'll go back for the fourth round in 5 minutes.